I hope everyone is doing well. Today, we are going to talk about, which I'm kind of excited about, what actually builds wealth versus what just keeps you busy. Happy Monday, everyone. Welcome to Monday Momentum. And today's conversation is not difficult. It's very simple, but it's one of those things that if you're honest, right, it can shift everything, but you have to be honest with yourself. So, and we're talking again about what actually builds wealth versus what keeps you busy, what keeps you comfortable, what keeps you stuck, the thing that you are okay with doing, because again, it keeps you comfortable. This is the thing, right? I'm learning a lot of high income earners, they are not broke, right? They're not struggling, but a lot of them are not building, right? A lot of us are not building, right? We're just kind of status quo, staying where we are, maintaining. And I think that there's a huge difference between high income and then true actual wealth. We've actually been talking about this for a little bit. We actually talked about it in an investor meeting last month. So that's what I wanted to continue on that conversation about, again, high income versus actual wealth. So let's get into it. I want to start. This is where I want to start, and I'm going to kind of ask you some questions. So uh, I'd love you to answer them, put them in the comments, unmute yourself if you want to talk. But I have some questions that I just want you to really think about. And this is where I want to start. I want to start in thinking about the word stuck. And stuck doesn't look like you're always like stuck. It doesn't look like what stuck actually means, right? Sometimes in this scenario, it could look like a really good salary. It could look like you being very responsible. And sometimes it could even look like waiting for the right time. So all of that looks good, right? Like if you're waiting for the right time, are you really stuck? But I want to pose this question and I want you to think about it, right? When you think about like your financial life right now, right? What's the thing that feels like motion, that feels like you're moving, right? But might actually be keeping you in the same place, right? So that's something I want you to think about today. When you think about where you are or what you want to grow, what you want to build, right? Is there something that is like truly keeping you stuck, that you feels like you're doing something and but like you're really just circling the drain, almost like you're really just in the same place? And the things that I've heard when I've asked these questions, it's like maybe uh, saving, which is good, right? But never really investing, right? So that's another one that sometimes you hear people say that they're, which is good, right? You're thinking, okay, they're saving money, but imagine if you were investing, imagine what that could look like. So I want to just kind of ask you to think through that. Is there something that you're doing that feels like you're maintaining, but you really could be stuck? So I was pulling up the chat just to see if anyone pops something in the chat. But sometimes it could be like researching a bunch of stuff, right? But you're not doing anything with that research, right? For someone like me, it could be maybe picking up extra shifts, thinking that I'm using that to build something and I never do that thing, right? Or even it could even be like lifestyle creep, right? So as you make more money, you're earning more, you start like that starts eating into everything that you're doing. And so a lot of this is real, right? You might be thinking it might be something that's too personal for you, but I think that the hard part is like a lot of this behavior, right? It feels productive. Like you're like, okay, I'm saving, I'm picking up more shifts, I'm doing all these things, but there's a difference between activity and really truly making progress. And that's what I want us to think about. So if I pose that question to you and you have never thought about it, I'm glad, this is the time to think about it. But I want to flip it, right? So if you keep staying busy and you're earning a lot more, right? If that's not the answer by itself, right? So you're doing the thing, you're making the money, you're thinking about all the things that you need to be doing. But if that's not, if staying busy is not doing something, like what is actually moving the needle? That's something that I want us to think about. In the comment I hear, investing in stocks can feel like that. I feel like I research and I invest, but I invest long term, so I don't always see it again. Okay, yeah. So you're like, okay, I did something, but like, what is that something amounting to? So I want to ask you, what is one decision that you've made or one decision that you've watched someone else make that was clearly a wealth building move and not just an income move? So maybe you did something or someone else did something and you're like, oh, I need to emulate that, right? Like if I'm not there yet, I want to get there. So is there something that you've seen? And maybe this could be like your circle of people who are keeping you accountable and who are doing, maybe a few steps ahead of you. So I'd love to kind of hear what people are seeing Okay, I get content creation. So like people are doing that thing, right? And you're like, okay, I'm gonna get there, I'm gonna do that. And that could be, you're right, that could be a wealth building move, right? Because that can generate income, telling your story, building a community, building an audience, and from there, figuring out how you can give value and how that value can equate to money. So I love that. And for me, I think for me, as others, oh, I love this, investing in personal development, skill building courses, love that, right? And that might not translate to something right here and then, but like if you build on that, right? If you build on that knowledge and that skill, that can open multiple doors. I love that, right? For me, sometimes, right? You can think about that as like maybe the clearest line that I've seen that is when earned income, is like just a paycheck, and wealth is ownership, right? So every time somebody moves from like trading their time for money to like owning something, right? That, if you think about it from a long-term perspective, that is truly a wealth building move. And you might not see that right now, but like that is like, that is building something for the future. Like we've mentioned investment, like your first investment, it's making moves for the future. And that like, and even like thinking about syndication, right? When I started, that first asset started paying money while I was sleeping, in the form of distribution. So that is the shift that you have to be thinking about. And I like that. I love that we're thinking about it. As we're thinking about how can we start owning and how can we start building wealth that's more than just our paycheck. But so now I want to keep you thinking along this trajectory, because I think it's almost like a linear line almost, right? So now, if you know what builds wealth, right? My next question is like, why aren't we doing it, right? So we realized that we weren't doing it. We know the things to do. Now, why aren't we doing that? And I'm not talking about, people who don't have the resources, right? I'm not talking about that, because if you don't have the resources, the first thing you need to do is acquire that. But I really am talking about, us, expansive life, people who want more, high earners, people who are, might be in this room or might be listening to this conversation, but what's really in the way, right? And so if I were to ask you to be honest, right, what is the real reason that maybe you, or if you know somebody who hasn't taken that next step, and whatever that step looks like for you, right? So good, it can be stressful and uncomfortable, and that's true, right? But growth happens in those situations, in those scenarios. That's where growth happens, right? And so even if it's uncomfortable, but if you think about the benefit of it, I think knowing that, right, just knowing that alone can help you even make a decision to take the first step today. So I really like that, right? And sometimes a lot of what I'll hear is like fear, right? The big one, which is something I struggled with, was like analysis paralysis, right? So I kept analyzing. I'm like, when is the right time to like take a leap, right? I think that's also important for you to know, to think about, and to recognize that as a problem, right? And then when you know that you can do something about it, right? Or even like imposter syndrome, you might think like, I know investing was mentioned here, but you might think, well, I don't know how to invest, right? I don't know all the things I need to know. Like all these other people are doing it better than me. How do I differentiate myself, right? Or I don't know enough, I need to learn, I need to watch YouTube University, I need to read all these books, all these things, right? But at some point you have to make that decision. And I've heard a lot of it, like, again, I need to learn more. And sometimes, again, that's true, right? But a lot of times it's truly just the fear that is that's masquerading as making you think that like the thing that you're contemplating, right? The fear of being uncomfortable, right? Or even saying, I'm doing all this research to do it. Fear is masquerading itself as that, and it seems very legitimate. So learning, all the learning is good, but you have to move from learning. And I love the fact that, uncomfortable was mentioned. Discomfort, again, is that exact feeling of crossing from like where you are to where you want to be. That feeling truly is discomfort. It's being uncomfortable. What do you need to do to scale that, to get past that, to grow from that? I think that's something that's very important that we have to learn, we have to hold on to. So I love the comments, because you're thinking along the lines of, I see something I want to go after. I also recognize where there's a problem, and now I know what I need to do about it, right? And I will say this, these are the types of conversations that we need to be having more of, right? These are the things that we need to be talking about in our circles, in Circle, which is our platform, our My Expansive Life platform. And if you're on here, if you're listening and you want to join, the link is in the comments. It's in the chat. But I would say think about surrounding yourself with people who are having these types of conversations, right? So that you can then challenge yourself and then you can grow from it. Remember, you have acknowledged the fact that there's discomfort. You've acknowledged the fact that there's a difference between just earned income and then true wealth building. Like, what does that mean? Right? You understand it, you've acknowledged it, and now you know the thing that you need to do to get past that. So I would say, as we think about next steps, right? I want you to identify one thing, just only one thing in your financial life, right? That feels productive, but it's actually keeping you stuck. And we talked about a few things and none of them might relate to you, but I would say spend the time and think about what is it that you're doing that maybe feels good, but it's not moving you. You're not going anywhere. You're not making any moves. You're not building momentum, right? You're just doing that thing, and although that thing looks good on paper and maybe feels good, right? It's not getting you to your goal. It's not getting you to the better version of yourself that you want to. And so think about that one thing, right? And then I want you to take that one step further, right? I want you to ask yourself, like, what if you could see the future and you already saw the better version of yourself, the wealth building version of yourself, right? What would that person tell you today to do, right? Would they tell you to make that decision, to invest in that thing, to create that content, to put yourself online, to whatever, to teach, to step on stage, to invest in your first syndication, to build the thing, right? Whatever it is, what would he tell you? What would she tell you looking back? I think if you can do that today, right? If you can give yourself that little nudge, you giving yourself that little nudge, I think it can be a true wealth building step for the future. You can start thinking about ownership. And I would say this, right? The first step is to just know it, to own it, and to recognize it and even name it as well, right? So that's what I want you to do this week. I would love for you to name that thing. I would love for you to think about it, like, right? My future self would definitely tell me to apply pressure. Okay, great. Like, that's what they would tell you in that thing, right? Whatever that thing is, whatever that wealth building step, that leap, that, or even that like crawl that you need to do, I would say do it. So when you join the community, let's help you, keep you accountable. So if you want to pop it in there, we definitely want to hold each other accountable because we want to grow and we want to all live larger, expansive lives. So thank you. That's all I got. If you have any questions, toss it in the chat. But the conversation was wonderful today, and it was centered around who I was versus who I want to be from a wealth building strategy. So yes, thank you so much for everyone joining. And we will see you guys back next Monday. Have an incredible rest of your Monday, rest of your week. And again, I want us to really think about it. And I'll kind of go back to that question that I posed, like what does actual wealth building look like versus what are you doing that just feels busy? Because we want to get away from just busy and we actually want to be doing the things that are building wealth from a long-term perspective.